Hello there. All right, looks like everything's recording this time. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes it looks like it's recording. It's hard to see. All right, share my screen. This week we are going to be talking about colors and grayscales and adjustments in grayscales and what that is sort of all about. The first thing that we're going to cover, right, is adjust, um, image adjust. Um, as advertised, adjust the image, and it adjusts it in about 3 different ways, maybe 4. It adjusts the black, it adjusts the white, it adjusts the color, and I guess it does brightness and darkness, but that's really black and white. So, and then the fourth one would be like the contrast between them. And so those all live here. You can have like my tester image here. And so we can start off looking at some of this stuff. Let's just kind of go through it. And then I have an exercise for you to do that'll kind of incorporate some of this stuff. All right, brightness and contrast. If I click brightness and contrast, it's kind of self-explanatory. I can lighten up the image by adjusting the brightness or darken the image. It's funny, this is already pure black and pure white, so it doesn't really mess with that too much. I imagine if I lowered the contrast, no, it's still pretty rock solid. It's very strange because it's not um, anything special. It's just super white, and that's super black. By the way, hardly ever when you're doing any kind of illustration or work should you be working super white or super black. All right, off I go. Unless you're doing line work. All right, brightness contrast. So the new brightness contrast is this. It contrast obviously takes the whites and the blacks and makes them more harsh, whereas brightness and darkness go like that. The new one is a lot softer than the old one. So if you're looking for a bigger gear to do this, uh, the contrast and stuff, I always use Legacy. I'm not even sure what auto does. Brightness, contrast, auto. It probably just takes it to the best neutral position for the picture. Whatever the best thing that the computer thinks is the best for showing the image is not bad. It just bumped the contrast down a little bit. It was a little sharp. So there's before and there's after. Hard to tell. I mean, yeah, up is too saturated, down's a little washed out. All right, so let's talk about. We looked at brightness and contrast and what that does to a color image. So let's make this a grayscale image and see what brightness contrast does to a grayscale image. You know what I'll do is I'll keep them both around. I'll duplicate this layer. And I'll hide that one. And then I'll come up here. So there's lots of ways to change this to a grayscale image. You can go image mode and switch that to grayscale. And we'll talk about color stuff later on, but this is where you switch 18 to 16 bits and all that sort of stuff. But you can just switch it to a grayscale here. It's going to ditch my old one anyways, because I'm switching the mode. So this entire mode now is all grayscale. So all my stuff is switched to grayscale only. So this means that my colors aren't available to me when you do it this way. I move back, get my stuff back. If you open a black and white image with no color information, it will open in grayscale mode. And then in order to work with it, you'll have to switch to RGB or CYMK, RGB probably, or index color if you're working with specific web stuff. All right, so let's do it this way now. I'm going to hit desaturate, which takes all the color out of something. So now we have a black and white image, but we are still in RGB mode, not in grayscale. You can switch to grayscale, it'll kill all the other stuff again. It'll get rid of my color one in the back. So now let's look and see what happens with brightness and contrast. If I do that same -14, I can't really tell, but you can kind of see a little bit better, right? If I can brighten this up. Why would you ever do this? It's so you can see stuff that is kind of shadowed out, like in a normal picture. Maybe this is, you want this fork to be totally separate. So you might up the brightness so you can see it a little better, and then up the contrast so it doesn't look all washed out. But as you do both of these things, it's always a delicate dance, especially with a color picture, of getting too much saturation. So if I up this here, you can kind of see it going. Up this here, you can kind of see. And of course, that's full saturated, full brightness and full contrast. And then there's the other way. So this way, everything white pops out, and this way, everything black pops out, everything true black. Right, and so that there you can reduce this to a very graphic thing. This is a great tool. We'll see how to use this tool later on. But like if you want to turn your picture into more of a graphic, you can do this, and then you just set this to screen or something. Turn that back on, and you can see, have it maybe multiply, a very graphic representation of that. Just using, this is the actual one, but we've upped all the shadows and stuff to make this very contrasty. So if you're looking for this kind of look, I don't know what this, like the soap label or something very granola-y, like, you know, cover for picture of homemade oatmeal. I can't think of anything that kind of is this sort of flavor, kind of cabin, kind of, you know, more country kind of stuff. All right, take this back. And now we can still play with our grayscale a little bit more. Let's go look, and I'll kind of take you through both of these and show you what they do on either side. So let's go to levels, and levels, of course, is the histogram. And it does the exact same thing, except you get to see a graph. And you have midtones. You don't really have midtones. In brightness contrast is binary. They're here, here, and here you have midtones where I can make everything like a little brighter or everything a little darker. We talked about this. Oh, look, I've isolated the picture. We've talked about this when we were doing the camera raw stuff. It's pretty much the same thing, and there's a whole bunch of presets and things you can hit. And curves. Curves is just another way of doing that, except for a linear translation between the two, you now have spline translation. So it's softer. Instead of being straight across, it's now softer in the transition from light to darks. Exposure. So different than contrasting. I really think they came up because exposure is a camera term, right? So I really think some of this stuff is just brightness and contrast so that camera people can understand it. Well, like, oh, yeah, no, I don't understand brightness and contrast and midtones, but here exposure, offset, and gamma creation, I totally get that. Yeah, you might have a different opinion. You guys are all camera guys, so all right. I should just go to the good ones and stop screwing around. Vibrance. Vibrance is kind of a different thing where it takes things that are already white and tries to make them a lot whiter. Not much on that one. Let's try it on this one. The saturation tool. I never use any of these tools. I use hue saturation. That's not true. I use a lot of these tools, but I use hue saturation, desaturate, replace color, shadow and highlights, and the histogram quite often. Let's see what vibrance does. If I increase the vibrance, vibrance is saturation. What's saturation? There's saturation. Vibrance. All right, so saturation. I think vibrance is a better saturation. It's more true to what you want. So if you want, say this is your green color, but you want it to be this color greener, then you can pop up the vibrance. But if you want this color to be a more saturated green, then you hit this, but then it starts going, it's not lit. Vibrance keeps the lighting to it, but saturation just starts knocking the color into unreal land. And you can use them both in tandem, right? Quite nicely bring out the colors. I think it brought out the colors of the wood better than it did the green colors going on here. Okay. Hue and saturation. Hue and saturation is one of my favorite tools. It allows you to control the lightness and the saturation. It also lets you change the color, but it changes the overall color. So it doesn't take one color and change it. It changes the entire hue for the entire picture. And then if you click down here, you can change, like it'll just change the reds. It's still changing this a little bit, but not as much as it was. And if I choose the greens, then you can see it's not affecting the background because there's no green in the background. But it doesn't do a very good job of swapping the color. Honestly, nothing really does a great job of swapping the color, especially on a complex object like this with nice shadows and stuff. If you want this to be a darker green, you can lower the saturation. Take it back to master. Sorry, you can lower overall color and increase the saturation. But then you start losing your picture if it gets too light. It also does colorize, so you can color the entire picture, and this allows you to make like sepia tones. It's almost like grayscale, but with color. Right, so now you only have one color. It's so funny that this is like pure white, and so it refuses to change any kind of color. If I were to, let's see, if I select this green here and come over to color, get it off pure white. I'm just color bucket filling this real quick. Now if I go over here, go image, adjust hue saturation, you'll see that that emblem now changes with stuff. It's still white, but now it's red and yellow. It's more in tune with the entire picture. Honestly, the white color you have in your image should have some color from the light in the image with it. Like pure white is weird, looks weird when it's looks like it's put on when it's because there's no light from the room affecting it. So I put this logo on here, so it's not really in the room. But if I come in here, oh, I'm changing this one. I'll be on the right layer. And now this has a better appearance of actually being in the room. Same with black though, you can't really have like a true black. You always want to be a little bit off. Like if I select this black, that's pretty true. But this one's a little bit above. So our darkest shadows are black in this one. And I don't know that we want our darkest shadows, this to be representative of our darkest shadows. I think you want it up a little bit so that it changes the light. I think that looks better than what we had before. All right. That's hue and saturation. I love hue saturation, my favorite one. Use it all the time for a lot of stuff. All right, adjust, and then we have color balance, which is hue saturation again, but with sliders for each individual color present, so you can see them. And this is, there's RGB and here's cyan, magenta, and yellow. So if that's in reference to, and oh, I'm sorry, and this allows you to do shadows, highlights, and midtones. So you have 3 sliders for each of the different sort of breakdowns of light, so shadows and highlights and midtones. So this one gives you a lot of options. So for instance, if I wanted to bring up my shadows a little bit from pure black, I can just come in here and raise all 3 of these, and that pulls it off pure black to a slightly different color. And if I wanted my highlights to be super white, I just take them like that. Cool. Okay, so that's color balance. View again, image, adjust. Black and white. Black and white's kind of an interesting one, right? Because you have all your choices here, where they're just on an open slider. This is a good one to have like docked over here, because you're like, oh, you know what? I need a little more red or something. And this one has a whole bunch of different settings you can do. Bring it up again, black and white. So it immediately makes it a grayscale and then fixes the grayscale and then allows you to do tinting if you want. And you can adjust the color portions of it in grayscale. Take all the red out, put all the red back in. Adjust the overall tinting. But it does change your entire color. Makes it black and white, and it gives you the option for tinting. Doesn't do much to help us with our current image, unless you want to totally change it. If I were to do black and white, I'd probably do instead of hitting black and white and having it all done for me. I would, there it is. Does some cool things, I gotta say. But if I wanted to make these changes to it, I would probably go image adjust to saturate. And then image adjust, use saturation, and then hit colorize, and then mess with the color in here. It's way easier just to hit black and white, isn't it? Photoshop, lots of different ways to do the same thing. Photo filter is pretty self-explanatory. You can just pick if you're into any of these. You know, they have a bunch of preset filters. Warming and cooling and sepia. Sepia is probably the most common used, right? Because it just one more time, photo filter. Makes everything look old. It's really just putting this brown picture over the top. Once again, image adjust, hue saturation, colorize, find the orange bit of it. Yeah, wherever orange is, orange yellow. Sometimes I go like this so I can see the colors a little bit better. There. And I can knock out the saturation a lot. And then it's too sharp. I probably knock down the contrast to image adjusts. Oops, image adjust, brightness, contrast, and knock down the contrast a lot. And the second you start like raising and lowering the brightness, but second you start getting rid of the contrast, right, then it starts looking like an old photo. And then you just do dust and scratches. Oh wait, I removed the noise. I don't want to do that. Yeah, I did it backwards. Filter noise. I'd like to add noise. I always get confused because I use After Effects, and After Effects has a lot more effects than obviously Photoshop does. I think so. I'll often go looking for effects that exist in After Effects that don't exist in Photoshop. The filter gallery. There's the filter gallery. Texture. Grain, not really. No, definitely not that. And you always want to come down and go fit into view so you can see what the heck you're doing. No, 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 no. But there was one called Torn Edges. Maybe I have to add that one in. Because you don't want to do this right on this. If I were to do this, then I would have duplicated this and then added this in later. Because now we've lost all our color completely. Put that above it and multiply. Screen. Screen and knock that down until we get it. And that's how you make an old-timey photo. It's hard to make a plastic Tupperware look like an old-timey photo. Much easier to do with people. And there are other tricks, but I digress. I digress a lot. All right. Come back here. Let's keep going through these. Image, adjust. Photo filter, channel mixer is the same thing where we can adjust the colors. It also has presets. We don't have any orange in it. So it killed it. Image adjust. Color lookup in case you want to know what numbers these colors are. You can see I can just click on the different colors and they takes me to where they are, and then I can get a numerical value for those if I wanted. You can also has all these different camera things to do with it, which is kind of weird for color lookup. So, but I think the color lookup has the best, like real world camera filters for it. I don't know why they're all in there, but there you go. I think that it does, if you're looking for like Instagram or style photos, I think that does the best job. But yeah, again, I like having more control, so I would have done this slightly differently. But if you want just a button that does it, there you go. All right, these are kind of big ones. Invert, of course, swaps all the colors to their opposite colors. This is much a little easier to digest in a black and white. You can kind of see as advertised. Posterize, and that just flattens everything out, right? The less layers you have, the less detail it's going to have. It's making a poster out of it. So this is full detail. And then as you crank on down the line, the detail starts disappearing. It starts really disappearing right here. By the way, that's a filter in here too as well. If I go to the filter gallery, posterize is in the artistic thing, I think, somewhere. I remember seeing it. I don't see it now. Kind of the same thing as cutout. Or photocopy. It's very similar. Just does a really harsh sort of deal on it. Okay. Going down the line, threshold. So if you, this is a histogram version of it, so you can see where you are on the line. Wow, they really did nice things to that. It's hard to do to get that to come out like that. So if you needed to isolate this logo now, you have a selectable. I hit OK, like, hey, I really want that logo, but it's all colored and there's a bunch of crap around it. So now you can select this logo. New page. In case you wanted to rip a logo off something. The problem with this, right, is that's kind of rough and ready. So if we zoom in, you can see that these edges are horrific, and you probably wouldn't want to go to print with something like this, but you can go in and clean these up by hand, which is hard to do, but at least you have it. This is like mostly like if you needed something that size for your website or something, just quick and dirty, then that's a really easy way to go. Of course, this image I don't think is that big size. No, it's only just inches. Let me make it 300 and make the height 102. Oh God, no, I don't want that. Sorry, forgot I switched to inches. Pixels. I make this 2K. That's better. It's the same exact size. I prefer having more pixels, less inches. But it's really the same size. You saw how much it's probably, this is even probably a little smaller. I just think you get more resolution with 300 DPI than you do with 72 DPI, even if the picture is huge. It nets out to be the same exact data save. But I like keeping the 300. I think I get a little more bang from the buck. All right, adjust. Where are we? Thresholds, gradient mount. And you can see this is put a gradient on it. And if we wanted to change this, right, we can go into our gradients. And pick purples or the black to white. If this is orange to white, it's a darker orange here, and it goes, you can see there. Grays and reds, greens. And of course, this is a gray image. You do that on a color image, it does the exact same thing. And the image just gradient map. There you go. And you can also do this if you come in here into blending options, and then you can choose a gradient overlay. Switch this to multiply. Come in here, choose a normal map. This one, it's not a normal map. Pull that off, add a new one there. Make that a blue. Okay, and you can see it's using a weird style. I want linear, and then it's apple to apple. So then I can adjust this. Shows me where the light and the dark break is. Like right now, you can see the light and the dark break is that. But if I wanted it to go straight across, now it's right here. And now I'm blurring. See, that's a sharp line on the gradient. If I move this, it evens out that gradient across it. The good thing about doing it in the blending options is you can turn it off and on if you want to. For the other thing, this is a hard change for it. If you do image adjust, it changes the actual image. Off. To get down there, selective color. So if you wanted to muck with one of the selective colors, this is how you do it. It lets you pick. Doesn't seem to be. And this is changing, but this doesn't seem to be doing much. Oh, this just, so I'm able to now increase the red, the cyan, the blue, or decrease. If I decrease the blue, the yellow channel, but increase the red in the yellow channel, and increase the yellow, and decrease the black, increase the black, and decrease the yellow, and decrease the magenta. And now it's kind of green because the cyan's all the way over. And on and on. A lot of image adjust stuff. Some of this stuff is, I think, is just legacy, and it's can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. Shadows and highlights. This usually comes with a histogram where, so you can adjust the shadows, right? Here's more adjustments for the shadows. You can change the shadows colors to different things. It's all the same stuff we get on the other page. The tone of the shadows, the radius of the shadows we can increase. Exactly. Oh, no, okay, so full tone of the shadows, radius of the shadows. You can see them. The shadows kind of getting bigger and smaller. Most noticeable on the lid here, which is that's kind of weird. And you can see it kind of, if I have it here, you can see it there, and it kind of grows a little bit. Okay. Okay. We're getting down to it. Image adjust, shadow highlight, HDR toning. Yes, please flatten the image. Stop. All this stuff. It's kind of interesting. You know, I had to flatten the image. That's kind of odd. But HDR, right, is high definition rendering. And so this That would be making adjustments for high definition renders. I don't know that you guys do a bunch of that stuff, or why it wants to flatten the document. Seems a little odd to me, but it's all the same shadows and highlights and vibrance and saturation. There's a curve to do it. That's weird. Anywho, once again, image, adjust, desaturation. There we go. Now we have our desaturated version. Excuse me. Match color. I don't like this one. It does weird things. So if you have another picture somewhere, the picture somewhere, you can call that picture up and pick the color, have it match the pictures, the color of that other picture, or the color and intensity. It's good for when you have multiple pictures that you want to marry together and they're slightly different, like take same area or something taken different times of the year. Things like that. Hardly ever use that. I just do this by eye, but it's nice that there's a functionality for it. And always, just because I say, oh, I never use that, doesn't mean you guys won't use it all the time. You should never, just because I'm not, like I said, a fan of it, doesn't mean that your workflow can't include it. If you think it's, honestly, if you ever find something you need to do, and you don't know how to do it, most likely Photoshop can do it. You just need to look up on the internet how to do it. Especially if I haven't covered it in the class, or it wasn't covered in your previous class. If you have something weird you need to do, like I really want to make this guy's face bright pink, and I don't know how to do that. Well, actually, I've shown you how to do that, but you can just, if it's something weird, I recommend just going and looking it up. The program's been around for so long, and there's so many tutorial videos out there that it's like looking up a recipe, right? It's you just gotta, like, I really want to make chocolate chip cookies, but I want to make the fluffy ones, not the flat ones. Then you just go look those up. Always there. All right, this is the one I use all the time, replace color. Replace color is kind of funky duty, where you can pick a color, say this green here, and I can choose in the picture how much of the background, because the screen's reflecting here and here and here and stuff. So you can see by doing this, I'm adjusting the contrast of the grab. So, and that will denote how much of this gets to change color. So now I've said I wanted that green color to change. And now I can come in here and change it to pink. And you can see the shadows in here didn't really grab really well. So I can increase the fuzziness until that grabs, but you can see then it starts rewriting the background, and you may not want that. I don't use this all the time for this. Like, it's not a very good tool for actually changing the color. You're much better off separating this object out and then changing the color, but it is available to you. I do use it quite a bit, but for like things like this, like if I cancel this, right? And I wanted to see what this emblem looked like in a darker green or something, but I didn't want to go in and hand fill it in. I would go image, just replace color, select that, and make sure that that's all that's lit up. And then I can go like, I want to see what that looks like in blue. And if you want more saturation, if you want it to be like a more true blue, you have to knock down the lightness of it. Somewhere full saturation and kind of a lightness, you get more true colors. But then you can see, I use it a lot for this kind of stuff. Like, oh, yeah, that logo would look okay in red, I guess. Just for trying things out. Sometimes I'll use it for switching. It's also really good if you have a picture. What's a good example? If you have an image in the sky or something in it with a bunch of trees. Let me see if I can find one of those for you. Been working on this thing here, and I just had to do this, but I did it in video, not in in Photoshop. Find an example that's going to work for me. I'll try that one. Okay, so I have this picture of the hill and stuff, right? By the way, if you have this kind of stuff going on, you want to get rid of it, this is really a neat thing to do. Where if the sky doesn't change, like this has a ramp in it from this blue to a lighter blue, but it's the same all the way across. You can just select an area and go Option or Control T, and then just drag this over the top of it, and it kind of erases it. This is much harder to get rid of, but not impossible. This is the healing brush and stuff. We'll talk about fixing photos. Right now I want to show you a color thing. So actually this isn't a good picture because I want something with trees, and this is just a soft thing. If I wanted to replace this color, I'd actually just draw a separation. I just come in here and go the magic of having a tablet. Come on. If you need to add to your selection or distract from it, you just hit Alt around what you want to remove, or Shift to include stuff that you missed. Like, oh, I missed that little bit there. All right, then you can just go Image, Adjust, Replace Color. You see, it just has that little bit selected. So I wanted a lighter blue. I could just darken that and then increase the thing. But you can see it doesn't do a great job. Most likely, I would create another layer and come get a gradient tool. Let's dark to light, and then switch this to a blue. Come down here. And you can see it. I just need to back off a little bit with the color. And that's a much, there's the original. There's the new one. And I would go clean this edge up, but just so you can kind of tell. That's not a bad way to go. And of course you can switch to any kind of sky you want. You can see the overlap here. Let me see if I can find a picture that's suitable for this. So with this picture, right, there's all sorts of blue inside these trees all over the place. Let me just rasterize this because I don't want to have to deal with it. Then image replace is really good. Image adjust, image replace color. You can select that blue. Lighten up the entire sky if I want. Or if you want to change the hue, but you can see it does a really okay job. I wouldn't say a wonderful job because there's still that other little blue around the edges there. There's no real good way of fuzzing that out. The fuzz thing is already on full. You can see the more I let go of it, there's so many ranges of blue colors in here that it's hard to make that look good. But I can always just bring in another iteration of the picture. Well, assuming the picture was matched up. I just duplicate this. Well, what I would have done is take the original picture. Oh, here, God darn it. I'll back it out. Duplicate that picture. Yeah. Come in here. Rasterize the layer. Image just. Replace color. Select the color. Change the hue. Lock it kind of down so it's a solid color. Hit OK. And then we can pick one of these. Yeah, I might even go like this. I might drop this down below and then come in here and find a place where the blue edges and stuff aren't really a problem. Or go screen on top of this. And the process of kind of blending these two together kind of does a nicer job of hiding the imperfections that will occur. This is a really low res image. You can see it falling apart, but you can still see the blue stuff there. Bring this back down. 100% again. Now I can go in here once you've done replacing color. I can come in here and select that color again. And make a full saturation. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, about this color, can I also do that one? Yep. And then you could just keep going on and on and on until you've wiped out your halo. But it's much easier if you can automatically do a better grab. If I had a higher resolution image, then you'd be able to see it. Like even this one at this resolution, right, is pretty okay. Cool. All right, we're all out of buttons. I'm going to stop the video there. And the next video, we're going to do a demonstration on how to put all this stuff into practice. It should be interesting, a couple of different ways.